What does GameFi mean to you?
What is your product?
Who are you?
What's your product?
What do I do? I don't know.
Only the market cap.
Yeah, Bobby Ong, co-founder, CEO of Coingecko. What does GameFi mean to me? GameFi is kind of like, I think, the next wave of Web3 product, where we bring the billions of masses of people into crypto. That's what it means to me.
Hi everyone, my name is Eva. I am a principal at Mechanism Capital and we do Web3 investments and part of that includes crypto gaming as well. In terms of GameFi, I think the label has a lot of different meanings and I think it could mean gamified finance or it could mean a crypto game or a game with crypto. And I am investing in that space and actually investing as it evolves. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Well, nice to meet you all. My name is Jerry, and then as Sam has mentioned, in Korea we just had a Korean blockchain weekend about a month ago. I'm a co-lead of global adoption at Klaytn. Klaytn is a Singapore entity. However, Klaytn is backed and first produced by Kakao. Kakao is I don't know if you know, in Asia, there's a messenger called Kakao Talk, and this dominant messenger app in Korea. So with our strong background in Korea, and Korea being or having a lot of AAA gaming studios, we have chosen gaming and entertainment. The entertainment side is like K-pop and all that, but I'm not going to be talking about that. But gaming is one of our key themes, so I think that's why I'm part of this panel, and yeah, excited to be talking.
Great, thank you. So next up, let's do a quick show of hands. Who here is a gamer? So who here has played like Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, PC? Okay, so most of you. Now who's played a Web3 game in the last week? Last week, or in the last few days. Okay, so it's not too bad, that ratio, but clearly there's more gamers than Web3 gamers. So how do we fix that?
I don't know if it's a problem that we have to solve in the sense that every gamer has to become a Web3 gamer. I think it's more so, I think the framing of it is how do we make Web3 games better and actually make sense? Instead of how do we push all gamers to play Web3 games, because some people, they like to play mobile games and they can't play PC games. We don't need to force all PC gamers to become mobile gamers.
I think everyone can agree that the level of maturity or of game, let's say on PlayStation versus X Infinity, is too wide, too different, right? So I think obviously on the maturity front, I think obviously the blockchain games would need to, it's got a lot more room to grow. But at the same time, I do believe that it is a lot to do with titles that they are more familiar with. Let's say if Minecraft comes over to blockchain, I think the adoption rate of people coming over to blockchain is going to be huge. So it's also working with the existing AAA gaming studios who were quite successful in the Web2 space, convincing them why they have to be moving over here, and why tokenomics will be part of the blockchain games. So the level of comfort for the gaming studios to be financially or at least be financially involved or legally involved in the tokenomics, I think that's going to be a key issue for the adoption.
So I had more time to think, folks. From that answer. So I think the question was like, how do we get more people into Web3 games, right? I suppose it's kind of like a question like it's like kind of if you rewind the time like 10, 20 years ago, like do we ask the question, how do we get more people to use the internet? Like that's kind of like it seems like a similar parallel to me. And I think we don't really go around, hey, you gotta use the internet, you gotta use the internet. People kind of gravitate to using the internet when there's like good use cases for it, and you kind of get pulled into it. Just like how you get pulled into using emails, get pulled into using social media and so on. So I think if we flip the question for games, how do we get more people to play Web3 games? Like I think what's the pull factor for people wanting to play Web3 games? And games in general, it has to be fun, for example. That must be the primary factor. Games must be fun. Once games are fun, then people will start using it, start playing it. And I think what's happening now is like a lot of existing games are kind of built on Web 2 infrastructure. There is no strong incentive for these guys to kind of switch their existing stack to a Web 3 stack, because if it works now, if these games are generating millions or billions of dollars of revenue, why fix something that is not broken? But if you are an upstart gaming studio, you are a fresh company, no users, how are you going to challenge the big games like Roblox, Fortnite, and so on with millions and hundreds, tens of millions of users? What do? If you design a fun game in Web 2, you may or may not stand a chance to win, but if you may want to, you can think of Web 3 as a building block that these game studios, game developers can sort of use to kind of challenge the incumbents. And using these Web 3 blocks and all these financial mechanism, DeFi mechanism that is kind of inherent in Web 3 are kind of like tools in the toolbox to kind of that you can use to kind of incentivize and kind of bring people in and hopefully get them to stay because the game is fun. The games need to be fun so that people kind of stay and play them naturally.
So Ubisoft tried this. They tried to make NFTs for Ghost Recon, right? So you can buy new levels, new guns, new characters, whatever. But gamers didn't actually like it at all, right? They saw it as like nickel and diming, a new version of a DLC that just wants to get more money out of you. How do you stop gamers from thinking that? How do you show them the value versus showing them that it's simply a way to extract more revenue from a user?
I mean, I guess the question is like, do users feel that they've been cheated from existing Web 2 games? Like when you buy in-game assets and not having the ability to sell them to someone else, if users don't feel that they are cheated by Web 2 companies that way, then maybe it's not really a problem. People don't really mind paying Web 2 companies and not having the ability to resell their assets. Obviously, NFTs provide this ability for you to buy an asset from the issuer to game developer, and having you have ownership and resell them. For many people, that is something useful. Maybe for rich people in rich developing countries, a $10 skin doesn't really mean anything to them, but for someone in the Philippines or Indonesia or India, it's like it could be like 2 weeks wages, and they want that ability to resell it. So maybe the people complaining about those things are not really a target market of the game developers. So people who are paying right now are people in the rich world countries. Whereas if you think about games monetization in emerging markets, like maybe it's really hard to monetize all these users in Malaysia, Philippines, and so on, and they don't want to pay. For them to pay and buy NFT is probably a big step and leg up already, and that's quite a big win if they can monetize from the royalty itself.
Eva, what do you think?
The question was, there was a couple of questions there, which one?
Well, I guess more, how do you convince gamers who are cynics about the whole thing that Web3 has for them value? It's not just another DLC, right? That it actually has something of value, that they need this to have a better experience.
Yeah, I think breaking it down first, there's a lot of legitimate reasons why gamers don't like crypto games and NFTs. And for the most part, what they think about the culture and financializing games is true. And I think if we don't fix that or find a way to show, to incorporate crypto in a way that doesn't just financialize the game, then there is nothing to convince. Like it's not good. So I think my intuition is that what we'll see first is probably an on-ramp where it's still free to play, and then maybe play to own or play to earn. Just because I think everyone's just grown up on free to play right now, and they're not used to really paying as much. And for those types of games, you're probably going to have to do more of like a free mint style thing first. But I don't think that's going to be the end state. But I think it's probably going to be the middle step.
Well, I think we covered this side of definition for GameFi. I want to maybe steer more towards GameFi. As Eva has mentioned, right? There's different versions of definition for GameFi, and then one is GameFi DEX. There's a GameFi Metaverse. So I think widening the audience, not only going after the Web 2 gamers, but widening the audience is also a key component of what we are discussing today. For example, DeFi Kingdom is a DEX essentially, but it presents itself as a GameFi. Like it's more fun to be engaging with a DeFi Kingdom rather than let's say a exchange marketplace looking DEX. So that's why people have followed that DeFi Kingdom route. By the way, they're moving over to Klaytn, so that's why I'm just like putting it out there. But
You get one free shot.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also, so Sandbox, right? Sandbox is how a lot of brands are coming into Sandbox. A lot of people who may not be gamers are coming into Sandbox. So it's a GameFi metaverse, right? I mean, it's a metaverse, but it looks fun. It's engaging in terms of it's got a gaming factor to it. So we can even widen the definition of GameFi. That's what I wanted to share.
Okay. So right now, bear market, right? Despite all the fun we're having here, Bitcoin is at, 20,000 right now? It's not good times, right? So GameFi, and what do you think?
20,000? What? 20,000 is bad times?
Oh, I don't know. Bobby, you're the data guy. What do you have right now for Bitcoin's price?
Yeah, I mean, I put out a tweet this morning. I mean, here we are in token 2049. There's 7,000 attendees flying in all across Asia, US, Europe, wherever, all over. I mean, countless side events, so many after parties. I'm like, everyone's double, triple book, like free flow alcohol everywhere. What bear market? everyone's feeling so rich, guys. Like, what this means is that the bear market is not there yet. They're going down further.
My question is, like, despite this so-called bear market, right? GameFi was an invention of the bull market. So what do you guys see in this so-called bear market? How does it change GameFi? I know on your site, right, you've got all the data, right, the listings, and how has it impacted, of course, token prices, but also like volume, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell people what's kind of. People keep asking me what's next in the next 12 months, and I don't know. If I wish I have a crystal ball, I can tell for sure what's gonna happen next. But I mean, there are some hints on what's coming next, and some of the hints are like I like to tell people follow the money that these guys put. Where are they deploying the cash? Where are the VCs deploying the cash? And if you look at the past 6-12 months, like the VCs are deploying a lot of cash in GameFi projects, a lot of games. And games are one of those things where it's a hit-based business. When he can talk more about it, you have 100 game studios, maybe only one will make it big. I like to tell people Angry Birds is kind of a good example. Like these guys, when I don't know, they tried 10 different times or so, and then he almost gave up, and his last shot before he ran out of cash, he built Angry Bird, and that made it big. And if you follow the cash, all these VCs, these guys can't just take their money and party off and like token 2049. Right? I mean, yeah, they can do that for 1 year, 2 years, but they got to deploy it and eventually ship something.
Yeah.
So we start seeing a lot of shitty games coming out.
Right.
That's what we expect. But maybe 1 or 2 teams will come out with, there will be a breakout, and maybe hopefully there will be something big that will take over the world with games. So that's kind of like the bet that everyone's making.
Right. So as an investor, how do you look at this market in the bear market, right? So if you're in the bull market, you've got one point of view on things, but for a bear market, how does that change things for GameFi?
Yeah, I think a bear market, whether it's GameFi or any other sector of crypto, it's just a symptom of high valuations, a lot of speculation, retail, and it's not possible for things to go up only. So I think it's a very natural part of the cycle, and I don't think it actually changes much about gaming, except that the barrier to entry, raising VC money and thinking that you're successful just by having like a little bit of traction is harder to get. So I actually think a bear market, a lot of the founders that are continuing to build their games now are going to come out a lot stronger. Like you can be upset that maybe you missed the gaming bull to like launch your token, but in the end it's going to give you a lot more rigor and in designing your game, and if you're in it for the long run, it's actually a really good time to think and build.
I think I can offer a little bit different perspective from a foundation perspective, because we as a foundation, we deploy grants to different projects, whether that be NFT projects or gaming projects or meta. I guess in the bull market, I personally, I was talking to, let's say, AAA gaming studios or like a big tech giants out of US on potential collaboration, like let's say hypothetically moving, as I said, Minecraft over to Klaytn. That's a hypothetical scenario, but the ticket size we were talking in terms of grants or technical support was in the tunes of like 100 million, 10 million, all that. However, all the grant programs at different protocols have dwindled, and then we're now setting a lot higher bar. So we are actually, we don't think this is a bad timing, but we are now venturing out to more like Southeast Asia, Vietnam, for example, where there are high level of talented developers, gaming guilds, DAOs. So we are now just talking to different groups of projects from Microsoft of the world now to indie gaming studios in Vietnam. However, as Bobby has mentioned, among those like small indie gaming studios, we do think that Next Infinity is going to show up. So I think that I personally believe that we are actually playing a safer game, because if we put all our grant money to one large US tech giant, and if it didn't work out, but rather than spending or spreading over 10 different projects, I think we would have a higher chance of making Next Infinity, I think. Or finding, actually. We are not making one, but yeah.
So, like on that point though, right? So the thing about gaming is that the next big game might not come from Microsoft, but rather from a small startup in Vietnam. So I guess the question is, how do you look for that as an investor, right? Because you can look at the AAA studios, which are really awesome, but for every studio like that, there are 5 in Vietnam or say Thailand that have real artists on board, that don't have a name, don't have a budget, but have art. Right. So how do you look for that as an investor?
So as a foundation, what we want to participate is like community building. Like it's become such a buzzword nowadays, a community in Web3 space. However, that's the only way. Like this kind of community in Vietnam, we send our people there. Like Beetle Vietnam, I think it was held last week or something. So you just have to be part of because you cannot locate one team after another. You cannot sacrifice, like you cannot be in Vietnam forever, right? So you just have to participate in this like developer community meetups or gaming guilds meetups, and actually we work. EVOS is the Southeast Asian large gaming guild. We have officially partnered with them. So partnering with guilds, developer communities, and then that's the way we meet them, and then give out grants, and then wait for Next Infinity, X Infinity.
Cool.
They have a lot of money, so just go asking to be your game, like easy grants.
But not too easy, hopefully.
We become a lot more difficult now.
Eva, what do you think about this? How do you find that next top quality game, right, from a studio that's not well known?
I think one thing that I really look for is crypto nativeness, understanding what it is you're adding into your game. I think a lot of game developers have this confidence because they might have made one successful game in the past that they understand what they're doing, but for the most part, they don't even know how tokens trade. They don't even know how to use a DEX. And they're gonna have a really hard time if they're not crypto native. That's probably a base level requirement. And then a second thing is really understanding how crypto changes their gameplay. I think a lot of people separate the token economy from the game, thinking that if they create a fun game and a sustainable economy, it just magically works, but it doesn't, it interplays. I think those are 2 really important things that game developers should know. And I think if I talk to somebody that seems to understand that, I think that's a really good sign.
Cool.
Whether it's a big company or not, or a small company.
Right. What about regulation right now? Because regulation is a big topic for any company, right? Especially big studios like Microsoft. Mm-hmm. So here in Asia, what's that like right now for rules and regulation?
Okay.
Yeah, I can start with
Korea, just because we are based out there, and Korea is quite stringent in terms of P2E games. So although we as Korea, our gaming studios publish a lot of P2E games, but in many cases, people onshore cannot even access that game. But so, however, the market is a lot bigger than Korea. So I think in Asia, except like very stringent, like China, Korea, Japan, I think the financial regulations are a bit more stringent. But in terms of Singapore, I think it's all, you guys can access everything.
Right, but Singapore is a small country of 4 million people, right? Korea is a massive market for gaming. So how will you build your product when you can't use it onshore?
I think when you think about regulation, you can either look at it going backwards or going forwards. And I think for gaming, it's actually one of our biggest opportunities to plant a flag and be like, hey, look, these tokens are just fun.
Yeah.
These NFTs, maybe they have value, but for the most part, they're game items. And I think for regulators who might be here, it's a really good opportunity to use these use cases to actually change policy to make that makes more sense.
Okay, sure. So Bobby, what do you see for trends right now in GameFi? Looking at your data, where do you see as the growth areas? Which niches grow a lot right now, and how does the bear market impact that?
Yeah, I think there's all this. Axie Infinity made play to earn, or as they call it, pay and earn these days, popular. And I think there's a lot of copycats. Everyone's copying the AXS SLP model, trying to do everything to earn. I think move to earn is kind of the most popular thing right now. So StepN is trying to do that. They got massively popular, and then we have all these copycats. We have Genopads, we have Sweatcoin, the most recent one. I think most interesting thing is I'm kind of impressed with this move to earn thing in the sense that it actually changed my behavior. So I was traveling around Europe a lot when StepN was at its height, and instead of taking the tube, for example, I chose to walk 2 stations, for example, just because that extra 20 minutes of walk allows me to earn some GST token, which was, I don't know, at one point was $50, $100 per walk, which was very lucrative. Obviously, the token economy is flawed in the sense that they followed the model and then they couldn't keep it sustainable. And they try to do things by replicating it on a separate chain, BSC and Ethereum, and basically restarting the Ponzi, if you may, but obviously it's all going down to zero again. So now they've got a lot of users, but very disgruntled users. The GST token is pretty much useless these days. So.
Well, it's a bad word, Ponzi, right? The P word. So how do you create a product, right, like StepN, which has good intent, without having that Ponzi aspect? How can you make money by tracking your walks?
So I think that's where, I've given some thoughts to the I don't have a perfect answer, and I think the focus should be less on the earning component. So there's only so much money that you can kind of throw to users to kind of, to use your app. I kind of look at tokenomics that this to earn model as kind of Uber or Grab giving massive subsidies to you to kind of use the. At one point we were being paid by Uber. 50% discount, take a Uber ride, but these days it's super expensive, right? So kind of similar to this. So it should be, emphasis should not really be on the earning element, but it should be more on what can you do around it. So I think maybe Sweatcoin may have an interesting thing. They were a Web2 company,
right,
where people are already collecting points and using it to redeem, for example, discounts in real world cafe, for example, or some other swags, for example. They have partnerships with Web2 companies. Or maybe StepN should become kind of analytics tracking app. So instead of you using Nike Run, for example, or Strava to track your runs and your cycling trips, you just use StepN and kind of use that as a way to log your sporting behavior. And these the tokens are kind of like Reddit points, if you may, your karma points, and you just collect them and kind of shows your reputation in that community. And actually, this is a good segue because I'm kind of monitoring very closely what Reddit is doing. I think what they've done is they have tokenized the community points on 2 subreddits. So the cryptocurrency subreddit and the Fortnite subreddit. So instead of getting centralized Web2 points where you can't sell them, so they've kind of allowed you to kind of turn that centralized Web2 points into Web3 tokens on Arbitrum.
Right.
And if Reddit can make that, because you can sort of imagine once you have that token, you can kind of then all this like user behavior, incentivized user behavior comes out. People want to like kind of spam and like write nonsense just to farm the token. So I'm monitoring. Reddit's got a lot of spam prevention, fraud detection technology in place. So if Reddit can kind of make it work on these two subreddit bots, and they can kind of scale that across all the other bots, like it may provide a template for all the other GameFi applications. And Reddit has also done NFTs, so they have this avatar, and it's represented as a Polygon NFT. They call it collectible because, as you said, the Web2 guys hate NFTs. The word NFTs kind of bastardized, if you may. So they kind of call it collectible, but you kind of click a button and mean a Polygon NFT. So kind of like looking at a lot of what Reddit is doing, because that could be the model for all the GameFi studios.
Sure. So for the investors here, like, so what would you have to see in a pitch from StepN or a similar app like that to invest in it? Like, what are the magic points you want to look at for that?
I think an understanding that those rewards, you don't just print them out of thin air. A lot of times they think that you've just printed this token, so the value, you get to give it away for free. But ultimately, you have to provide the liquidity for it, which means you usually use investor money to provide the stablecoin, the double-sided liquidity for it, and you pay for it. So I think I would look for things like even designing it with a different psychology. So even what you were saying about how you felt, the motivation to walk, that already exists in Web2, where you can stake an amount of money and people slash you. And there's like all these different ways that you can create X to earn models. So it's not just about giving away tokens. So something that I would look for is just an understanding that somebody has to sponsor the rewards. For free to use social media apps, it's actually advertisers that sponsor you to use something, for example, for free. And it's kind of finding maybe an interesting business model where those rewards are sponsored by something that's actually mutually beneficial for everyone, not like advertisers or buying your attention. Yeah, I think that's the main one when it comes to move to earn.
Yeah, I think we are also running out of time, so I just want to make a point that we're discussing GameFi today, but when I go to Web3 or blockchain seminars, or people ask us like, oh, so what's the future for NFT or metaverse, and where do you see it? So actually, we think that gaming is where the instant utility of an NFT is realized. Let's say, for example, like what's the benefit of holding an NFT of a monkey, right? A lot of people will argue, but like there's no instant utility. However, in gaming space, once you have that NFT, you turn it on, on ramp, it's gonna have the armor will increase your power, or there's that instant utility that we as at Klaytn, that's why we chose gaming as our sort of a focus area. So I do think that the future for GameFi, Web3 gaming is bright. It's a matter of how we not only focus on P2E and not only focus on the tokenomics of it, but rather focus on the maturity of the game that I mentioned before. And then how do you then make how do you improve the quality of the game? When I think we all know that when we actually say blockchain games, not 100% of the component is not on blockchain, right? NFT portion of it is on the blockchain, right? So I think there's a lot of collaboration points between Web2 gaming studios and the blockchain tech developers, because if they don't work together, the maturity of the gaming that we're talking about will never come through.
Cool. So audience questions from the crowd. Yeah.
Jeremy here from Malaysia. I don't get to talk to Bobby much. I only get to meet him in Singapore. So the question
You're a fan right there.
Yeah. So the main question is, so the Web2 games studios, they have been doing well. Again, what Bobby says, don't fix what's broken. And then there's Web3. How about blurring the two? Now we are very segregated. Okay, Web2, nothing to do with crypto. Web3, everything to do with crypto. What about in between? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming back to the Reddit example, right? So imagine you use Reddit now, you go to the cryptocurrency for Fortnite forum and you just type, and then use that app. Seems like a Web2 app. Over like 1 week, 2 weeks, 10 weeks, you collected like 500. They call it, I think, rocks, or I forget the token name, like 2 token names. You collect these tokens, before you know it, you have token. What you do with the token is up to you, right? You can choose to participate, you can sell them, you can stake them. There's all these things, but you may or may not choose to do it. But if you don't want it, you can sell it. Similarly, you're on Reddit, use that long enough, they give you a collectible, which is really an NFT. So now I think the future of games will be games designed that way. It looks and feels like a Web2 app, but underlying it, powering it, are Web3 technology stacks. And you will be using, and this is the way to onboard millions of users, because users don't know how to set up all these things and all. But you use this without realizing that you are using blockchain technology. You are using this, you're playing this game on your phone without realizing the assets that you're buying from the game developers via your Apple Pay or your Google Play. You're actually buying an NFT, and Apple's taking a 30% cut, for example. You have this token, this game point item that you have. It's on your phone, it's on your game. You can withdraw them to a DEX and sell them on Uniswap if you want to, but you don't have to. Or maybe Uniswap's already integrated on the game itself. The DEX in the game, just click one and just sell. So that's kind of the future of the game that I see.
Okay. Any thoughts? Yeah.
No, I think I've talked enough on that particular topic. So yeah, that's what I've been talking about for the last half an hour, I think. You're right, a collaboration between Web2 gaming studios and the Web3, let's say, Vietnamese indie developer communities. So, it's coming. It's like internet you mentioned. Like, you cannot fight it, right? So there has to be that tokenomics component to the gaming world coming in. So I think it's only a matter of time.
Actually, to me, I think we already live in like Web 2.5. If you're building your game on Unreal Engine 5 and then you only have your assets on blockchain, that's 2.5. It's not fully Web 3 in my opinion.
Okay, Ethereum shirt first, and then you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question, for Bobby. My name is Jason. I'm the lead
You go
organizer
hard,
for
man.
Malaysia. Right. Do you have any like data? Okay, because all these Web3 projects, games are on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Are we able to see their revenue? How many games are actually generating revenue so that they can, fund their business?
I think they are. I don't really monitor them on day-to-day. I think you do. You?
We don't monitor them, but there's Token Terminal, which,
Token terminal.
it's actually quite a manual job because they take revenue in different ways, right? Whether it's 7% marketplace fee or some other, maybe they even sell their own token, or NFTs and primary sales. So yeah, it's pretty manual, or get Token Terminal.
DAP radar.
Or DAP radar.
Okay, good one. Good.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of experimentation happening in Web3 at the moment, like whether it's models or features, like there's play to earn, play and earn, free to earn.
Free to play to earn.
And then you've got like guilds experimenting with things like even like digital identity and on-chain reputation. Like if I complete a quest, I get the soulbound NFT reward, which builds my metaverse resume. Like there's a lot of things going on right now, and I think everyone's kind of competing to figure out what will actually get adopted. I was wondering, what do you think is the most underrated model or feature that you've seen that no one's really talking about yet in Web3 gaming?
Gaming expert.
That's a tough one.
No, not that I'm an expert in this, but yes. So I've seen a chatting tool, like a chat, like I think it was an API kind of thing. So once you hold an NFT, you can talk to a fellow person who holds that NFT. So obviously you can adapt this API in not only gaming, but obviously NFT marketplace, etc. But I've seen this chat channel that is verified a holder of this particular NFT. So there is a you can talk about like you can trade your NFT with the fellow user. So there's no, I think it de-risks the scanning, like the NFT transaction, because obviously many of them are traded publicly on OpenSea. However, it's a lot of private, there's a lot of like broken promises, etc. In the private swaps of NFTs, right? So I found that to be quite a sort of eye opener.
I have a couple, but I think what's really what I would want to see more people do is actually doing more interesting things with their token economy. I think crypto is so composable that you can really do anything. So there are now like semi-fungible NFTs that are coming out where people can, instead of having tokens and their game points, they can actually trade like 100 pieces of gold or 100 pieces of grass. And those, like, that is really interesting. I think there's a big emphasis on synchronous games for some reason. Like, everyone wants to build the next League of Legends or some sort of MOBA. But crypto has such a small user base right now. It's very hard to do matching well. It's very hard to do anything well. So I think leaning on asynchronous games early on as we're experimenting is pretty interesting. I also think there's this idea of, instead of having a token where you just swap the points for a token, you could have you can use an index for all your NFTs. So across your whole game, yeah, ideas like that.
Any more questions? One more, or else we'll start shilling. Okay, well that was great. Awesome guys, thanks so much.